Good evening, everyone, and welcome once more to Sonal's Table. Today, we have a follow up session for you. Last week, if you remember, we had a session which centered around the mental well being of preteens. Today, we're going to do a follow up session. Basically, which is going to focus more on the teenage years. You know how teenage is called the rebellious phase in a kid's life. I mean, we've all been there, so we've probably passed through that phase ourselves. Not that we would admit to it, but definitely our parents would admit to it. So, teenage is a period basically which causes a lot of changes in the body of a child, not just psychologically, there are emotional issues that they're dealing with. They're suddenly adults, and yet they haven't outgrown their childhood phase. So, teenage is possibly the transition period, the pubertal period of transitioning is far more difficult than the adolescent period of transitioning in a child's life is. So let's find out today from our panel what are these different kinds of changes that take place in the body of a child, and what are the kind of mental health issues that the child might face because of these. Now, on that note, I would like to welcome back Dr. Dipti Katpalia, who was with our session last week as well. And Dr. Katpalia has about 20 years of experience in the area of holistic wellness and mental well-being. She's worked with organizations, with individuals, with children, and her focus is basically just to ensure holistic well-being of individuals via psychotherapy. Now, today, Riddhi Doshi is unfortunately unable to join us on account of some emergency at her end, but we will be continuing this chat with Dr. Dipti Katpalia. So, with that, I welcome her. Good evening, Dr.
Hi.
Dipti. Thank
Hi,
you
how are
so
you?
much. And
Thank you.
I am doing well. Thank you so much for coming back for us and on this especially very, very important topic that we have to discuss today.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dipti, basically, I see it's all often said, that teenage is a rebellious phase. I mean, and like we say, the terrible twos. जब बच्चा 2 साल का हो जाता है, तो my God, everything they start learning so much, and then they're asking all the time, why? No, those are the words they learn the fastest. So, what are the kind of changes that a parent can expect in a child soon as the child transcends into teenage, or kind of is in that puberty stage basically of his life?
Okay. So what has happened is because of the changing times in the new world that we are a part of for the last many, many decades now, at least the last 2 decades, the puberty onset has, kind of changed. So there is an early
Right.
onset of puberty in
Hmm.
boys and in girls both.
Okay.
Uh, yes, there is an early onset. There is no doubt about that. Now, the early
Hmm.
onset of puberty brings in a lot of hormonal havoc in the body of the little child.
True. True.
Yeah, so he may be growing. He is a generic term I'm using for the both the
Hmm.
genders, right? So
Understood.
so the child is growing up. The child is probably gaining height, but the
Hmm.
internal mayhem or the cacophony that he is experiencing is unbelievable, and there is
Hmm.
no language or there is no words that we use to explain what is happening, or the child,
True.
or because there is no conversation per se,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
specific conversation centered around that. So puberty brings along with it a lot of physical changes, but also a lot of psychological transformations.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what happens is, most parents, and you and I know that we've also had children, we've gone through that. If we were to anchor back to the time when we were growing up,
Hmm.
they were rapid, they were very serious confusions we had about what was happening about us, and there was legitimate fear as to having hair in certain part of our body, or having these
True.
organs suddenly growing up, so there were mixed feelings. And unfortunately, because of the stigma or the prejudice or the shyness associated around that, there were
Hmm.
no
Hmm.
conversations happening. At least I remember
True.
never being
Hmm.
spoken to about that.
Hmm.
Having said that, the puberty brings along with physical changes a lot of psychological changes, because one prime reason being the hormonal
Hmm.
movement. And it
Right.
takes a few years. It takes a few years for the hormones to begin to settle down. You see, and that is why they create a lot of psychological mess in that child. There can be a symptoms of anxiety because there are body image issues suddenly cropping up. There can be
Oh,
issues
yes.
of anxiety, yeah, body image issues
Right.
first individually, and then
Uh-huh.
there is a lot of comparison that we are all different shapes and sizes and color and skin, and
True, very true. Yeah.
right. But the stereotyping and the socialization that we are kind of growing up with, or our children are covertly growing up with, there is a stereotype perfect model that one should follow or should have. So children, without
True.
even having to go through directly, they are actually under a lot of there's a lot of peer pressure that the children feel, that oh, I need to look a certain way and I'm not the way that
True.
I should be appearing. And in these years, physical appearance takes precedence over any other thing, because you are trying
There's
to
a lot of
identify.
societal conditioning also, which we imbibe along the way, right? Okay.
Absolutely, and it is a cultural thing. That's why I'm saying socialization and stereotyping, because it's a very culturally rooted thing. And yes, I see a lot of parents stepping out of that now, and it's very heartwarming to see that parents are accepting children for what they are. One thing that I want to slip in here is we'll be able to accept our children exactly to the rate and proportion as we accept ourselves, or we learned to accept ourselves. Particularly for them,
theory, yeah.
but yeah, please listen to this, because it's transference. So how we were taught to accept and love and just embrace ourselves with whatever the skin color, the size, the figure, the girth, the academic or the lack of academic was, is exactly proportionate to what we are telling our children to learn. And this is
Right.
there is no verbal lessons that you're communicating to your children. Your child will just learn to
Right.
accept his or herself exactly to the proportion that you learned to do that for yourself. It's a very
So
critical.
so that kind of so what you're saying is that every child is going to face the onset of these kind of issues at probably approximately the same time, but based on the atmosphere that they have at home, based on the kind of societal or family conditioning they have received, each child will evolve differently. They will tackle
Absolutely.
issues differently.
Absolutely. And family plays a very, very critical role, starting from the time when the child is born, right up to the child reaching a certain age where they can venture out and start finding their own space. Puberty is the starting point where the child begins to assert, identify, acknowledge, learn, get aware of what that child is going to be, or what he is or she is becoming. And that is why you will experience, as parents, there's a lot of confusion that the child kind of sometimes shows. There is rebellion, there is behavioral issues sometimes that the child is going to. Most of it is not directed towards you, but it is coming from this utter confusion and noise.
They're trying to make sense of themselves, basically.
Absolutely. Okay. And with the multiple stimuli around them, with the overexposure to media, or to people, or to affluence, or to the places that they move in. Schools are a place where they can actually learn to find their grounds, but are also very dangerous grounds, because that's where bullying, that's where comparisons, that's where unacceptance, that's where them being dismissed or invalidated also stems. So unfortunately, this is the time that parents actually have a very critical role to play. So just holding their hands and telling them, we'll together make sense of it. We should be a good space. They'll have mood swings, Sonal. A lot of mood swings that you see that our adult children or the teenagers exhibit. And then there's a lot of body confusion or body positivity is actually lacking, because they're critical of how they appear. Even a small acne can be a serious issue for them.
For them, it's a major thing.
And unfortunately, what happens as parents, we forget what it was like for us. And I don't blame the parents, because it's okay. But time to time, please remember to go back to what you were like a 15-year-old. Maybe you'll get some references from there.
Right.
Because
Very true.
we unwittingly we become very arrogant, and we forget that what it is like to be a 14 or a 15-year-old. So closing eyes and going back to that time might help you empathize with your child. So even if it is acne, that acne is a very critical space for that girl or that boy. And I have cases where there are massive breakdowns that happen because of the appearance on the faces and the ridicule that they might experience, because children don't have filters. वो बोल देते हैं, स्कूलों में बच्चे एक दूसरे को टीज कर देते हैं.
Right.
And you know, so the sensitivity around that, and particularly the sensitivity that probably needs to be ingrained as to not to talk about somebody's body, somebody's color of the skin, somebody's stature, somebody's posture, somebody's walk, etc., etc. These are very physical and very relevant yardsticks for a person to be able to stand. Right? Family fronts, conflicting family fronts are going to cause, they'll aggravate the psychological difficulties.
There are a lot of flare-ups within the family. There's a lot of, yelling back and forth. And then there's a lot of frustration being taken out on each other. So those are a normal part of this process that every family needs to get through together.
Yeah, eating disorders is something that you'll commonly see in adolescents.
Okay, yes, right.
Yeah, eating disorders, if you really look at it, the eating space.
So do you mean anorexia or bulimia, or do you mean any other skipping meals just to be able to lose some kind of weight? And
so they're trying to fit into a society, na? They're trying to fit in. उस fit in के पीछे क्या है? That poor child, वो बच्चे का क्या desire है? Accept me. I want to be accepted. So there are eating disorders. Anorexia and bulimia could be one such. So they are serious concerns. Eating disorders can range. I can talk about that separately. But there are so children deprive themselves of food, or they will overbinge. Now, overbinging on food is also a sign of comfort eating.
Right.
Because there is a vacuum. They are feeling undernourished emotionally. And emotional undernourishment always pushes us towards food, because that fills up the gap for us. Then there is
a catharsis for them, basically.
It's just a go-to. It's just a go-to.
Right.
Then body shaming. Forget about body shaming. Shaming in general. Shaming in general. At home, and back in school, or back in their peer companies where they move around, because every child at that point in time unknowingly, unwittingly is trying to assert his independence, assert his individuality, whatever
their
that
opinions
means.
They need their opinions to be heard, right?
And finding themselves good enough to be able to be accepted in the larger gamut of things, you see. So that happens. Family conflict is something that is a major one of the biggest contributors to mental health problems in young boys and girls. Lack of support from family, because the parents or the primary caregiver or the givers are still struggling with their own difficulties and their own baggages. Sometimes it can be financial, sometimes it's interpersonal, sometimes extended family problems.
That's very true. Yeah.
And handling so many fronts, I empathize with every parent, because it's not easy to handle all fronts, yet be there to take charge of the family or the children particularly. And some sects of our society even today think that bringing up a child, if the child is not performing, the lady of the house has to be told that you didn't do a good job. I'm sorry.
The blame comes to the mother in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Very true.
And there is no.
Go on. No, there's some things that basically I wanted to put across. I want your opinion on something. It is seen that when the kid transitions from childhood to this pubertal phase, there is an emergence of a lot of emotions that the child earlier did not exhibit. For example, envy, jealousy. These are not emotions that children typically have. Because as you said, children are without filters. They are who they are. So envy, jealousy, moping, sulking, depression, feelings like these suddenly crop up a lot. I mean, these are things that we as adults understand. But how, as an adult, should we make our child understand that this is normal, how should that child learn to handle these kinds of the emergence of these kinds of emotions?
So first thing that is very important, and I think it's one of the most pertinent things that parents can, because there's a lot of power that the parent holds. That's what I'm trying to tell each and everyone here. So at that point in time, you do know that the pre-puberty and the puberty onset has begun. I
Right.
want I mean, I would recommend, I don't want, I would recommend that parents actually have a good, candid body talk with them, sharing their own examples. So, how does that work? A child looks up to their parents and their experiences, because they are the ones that they are growing up the most with in that particular period. So if we can refer some antecedents or incidents from our own childhood, how puberty was and how confusion was, what it is like today, they would love to talk. So there is a lot of stigma around talking about sexuality, puberty, bodily changes. Now sexual organs are suddenly becoming more prominent in children.
Right.
There are some very natural processes happening, and children are not able to make sense of what exactly is happening. Even having hair in the body, in armpits or in certain parts of the body, is a discomfort for parents to talk about. I have a client, a young 15-year-old child, who comes to me, and I won't reveal the gender. The child tells me that I'm shamed day in and day out for having body hair, and I don't want to talk to my parents, because if I'm wearing shorts, or if I'm wearing capris, or if I have a sleeveless outfit and I have armpits hair, I am shamed, I'm ridiculed, and I'm told to move away from the social setup, so that if I'm better dressed, I should be allowed only then. Now,
That is so sad. That is
no,
so sad.
so what can be done here is that the parent can actually first normalize this. The person is not out of the world. The normalizing that it's okay to have body hair, and how to take personal care. What are the small steps that we can do to take care of ourselves personally, so that we present ourselves better to the world and to ourselves? So talking about pre-puberty, puberty, and what are the difficult bodily experiences that the child is going to have, it's important. So whether you are discomforted, or whether you are not wanting to talk, find somebody who can actually educate them about this well in time. The one thing that
important.
Yeah, so I'm a child sexual abuse facilitator across the country. I facilitate workshops for child sexual abuse. Now, why I wanted to touch this just briefly, that when we educate our children about what their body is and how it is normal to have that, they will be able to they'll be educated and aware enough to know how to keep themselves safe from unwanted predators around. We don't know how the predators are. The biggest mistake we all make, all is a generic term I'm using, we give very unusual names to certain body organs, especially the genitalias. We don't, and it is that
we feel ashamed calling a vagina a vagina. I mean, let's put it out there. Yes,
absolutely. A penis is a penis. Why can't we? And these are biological names. Educate your children for the names that they have. They will start taking ownership. They will own their body when they do not own their body, because they do not know what is the safe touch, what is the unsafe touch. At teen, it goes way beyond. The children need to know what their body is comprised of, and how important it is to protect it, safeguard it, not just from sexual predators, but also from infections, also from responsible behavior, also from the love that they can shower to their own body parts and not be exhibitive until and unless they feel safe, So pre-puberty conversations and all during puberty conversations are a mandatory thing for them to actually understand. Envy is something, as you said, envy, jealousy, confusion. These are all terms because they are not able to normalize what they are becoming. And when we normalize it for them, that yes, it is perfectly fine to have what you're having, and it's okay to take care, and there are ways and means that we can look after ourselves, just makes it easy for them.
So
We have it,
basically,
you have it.
if we teach the child that you can externalize all these things that you're feeling and not internalize them, the child would not feel the levels of anxiety that they typically tend to go through.
Absolutely.
Right?
Model that behavior by talking about it. Okay, I want to talk about it. Talk about your own childhood. Talk about your own puberty. They are your children, your struggles, your successes, your
They matter.
difficulties are beautiful landmarks that, okay, my parents went through all of this, and today look at them. They are incredible, they're successful, and still they are functional. So it's normal.
True.
It is normal to go through. So you have to be that example. You have to be that model. But in case there are families where these conversations can become difficult, I would urge, reach out, ask for help, tell somebody to intervene and talk about it. I have a client in Kolkata. So the couple doesn't know how to bring up this conversation, very educated, highly. And I really give them a lot of credit for this, that this person contacted me and she said, ma'am, I want you to talk to my child about everything because I'm uncomfortable. I'm extremely uncomfortable. I said, fine,
I
let's
would
do it.
applaud such a mother. I would applaud such a mother, that mother or
Absolutely.
father, because they at least understood that the child was going through some kind of a transitionary phase which needed external help. So I would applaud that. Dr. Deepti, on that note, can you please tell us? Let's take the example of a typical boy and a typical girl. Both are going to pass through puberty, ages 13 to 14. What kind of physical changes will come in the girl's body, which will lead to what kind of anxiety in her vis-a-vis the boy? Because both of them would have some anxieties which are similar, and yet some mental anxieties are going to be slightly different on account of their genders. So could you please tell us clearly with respect to both?
Yeah, so briefly, I'll start with the girl here. The girls primarily focus in that particular 14, 15, 16 years of age. They're looking at their girth size, their breast size, their the way their skin color is and how accepted they feel about that, the overt. So they're more bothered about the overt appearance. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
True.
that is the space that they most more often than not feel very conscious and questioned about, because there are comparisons all around, right? In a case of a boy, it's the tonality, the baritone of a boy sometimes becomes a butt of rejection by the other boys. Yeah. Yeah, at 15, 16, puberty is full-fledged happening, but children, boys will experience having beards or chest hair or a Adam's apple a little later than the others, because for everybody it happens in
It's different. Yes.
yeah. So I was working in St. Columbus in Delhi, and I have seen, it was an all boys school, and boys, they can be cruel. They can be so cruel. And then they will make and I don't blame those children, because the sensitivity around that has not been addressed. So they will actually call you all sorts of gender sexist remarks come your way, that, oh, you're not a man enough. Now that is so beating. Forget about the academics or forget about the other aspects. When a boy is being ridiculed and made fun of at that point in time on these parameters, that तेरी आवाज लड़कियों जैसी है, तू चलता कैसे है, तेरी तो छाती पे बाल नहीं है, and you don't have a beard, oh wow, and they'll
it's mentally, psychologically debilitating for that child. Then
the child doesn't want to come to school because that is a space where he's being scrutinized. So you can imagine the intense damage that would happen to him internally, and these are lifelong inferences. Sometimes the child will eventually go through
in adulthood. Yes.
And this is compounded by at home. This is compounded because every home is difficult. They're dealing with certain difficult situations. So if this space in the school can be addressed comfortably at home by the parents, first and foremost, again, the conversations, every time I come back to that it is very important to have these authentic conversations. And every time, you don't have to fix things for your children. You're not supposed to. Sometimes you don't have to. The child feels adequately equipped to deal with these difficulties as long as he knows that my parents are with me. They understand it, and it's normal to feel that way. It's okay. Together we can. So that sort of a space. But this conversations that if the child is left alone with this, that he's probably gone through in a year or 2 years or a prolonged space, you can imagine where would that put him.
But Dr.
Girls,
Preeti, many a times it happens that during this stage, children, as you said, they're learning to assert their individuality. They think that they are adults, and yet their childhood is not still out of their psyche. So during this stage, many children do not come out to their parents and tell them that they're being bullied, or they're facing issues. What are the triggers? How can a parent understand it then?
So there are beautiful signs. There are many signs that the child will exhibit mental health troubles. Psychological health troubles are very somatic responses. You can experience, and they're all experienced somatically. तो आपकी body language में, आपके behavior में, हर तरह से वो communicate होगा. The child is talking less. There are eating changes. There are changes in his eating pattern. There are changes in his sleeping pattern. He or she overtly emotional, having crying episodes, or wanting to be left alone, not wanting to talk, not wanting to engage, refusing to step out. A non-pandemic world, refusing to step out to meet with peers, because this is the time when the child is actually wanting to connect less with the parents and more with
out of the house more. Right.
More with the contemporaries. Now, these are very normal, markers that we look at. There is apathy. There is one big giveaway is their personal hygiene taking a beating. If you see that your children, if you notice that for a consistent period in time, say about 3 weeks, 2 weeks, if the child is exhibiting apathy, if the child is not talking, not engaging, not conducting, not working, not being able to function, half the time parents think बहुत सुस्त है, lazy है, पड़ा रहता है, रात को late सोता है.
Actually, that is something that would come to any parent's mind.
Yeah, तो कि सारा दिन पड़े रहते हैं, 2-2 बजे तक सोते हैं. Agreed, social media तो है, but in a particular situation like this, the child is not engaging with the family. खाने में उसके changes दिख रहे हैं, उसके aggression के episodes आप notice कर रहे हैं. He's probably retaliating or not responding or just closing, banging doors and all of that. And if this behavior persists, it is a big sign. It's a big giveaway. There are aches and pains that the child might complain of, or you might notice. You might notice that the child is sad, generally appearing very sad. Now, logically, the parent might think that there is everything in the house. सब तरह का comfort है, सब कुछ है. Why is the child sad? But we don't know what has happened or what is happening. Cyberbullying is a very real thing. Very real thing.
Very scary nowadays, actually.
And these children are legitimately worried and fearsome. उनको छोटी से छोटी बात worry करती है. And for them, वो हमें छोटी लग रही है. जब हम 15 साल के थे, हमारे लिए वो बहुत बड़ी fear थी. कि if I go back to school and if somebody makes fun of me again and everybody starts sniggering, how will I cope up? What will I do? If the teacher finds a fault in me and she makes me stand and asks me a question and I'm not able to answer, not because I don't know, but because I have public speaking fear. What if everybody will laugh? What will I do? What if I'm not able to deliver? What if I'm not able to conduct myself? What if I'm not able to just do the basic stuff? What if nobody talks to me? The what ifs are millions. What if people don't talk to me? What if the teachers complain to my parents? What ifs? The what ifs are irrational, sometimes real, but in that moment they are extremely real because they're experiencing that what if in the future, and that is what causes anxiety. So basically, simply said, anxiety is basically what possibly might happen in the future, which you're creating right now in your body.
Right now,
so you're experiencing the future much before it happened, and for all you know, 90% of the time it doesn't even happen. But if I'm experiencing, or if Sonal, or if any child is experiencing anxiety, who's still learning the ways of the world, who's even a teen, even a 16-year-old is just learning to be equipped with the right vocabulary, the right mannerisms, the maturity, the understanding. That child, for that person, for that little boy or a girl, it is extremely real. So what do we
Very
do?
true.
There are
And what if there is a child with special needs? There is this question which is coming from Nisha. I mean, whatever things that you are telling us, what if there's a child with special needs? How do we understand in that case? How can we
Yeah,
help the child?
so the dynamics in case of a special child completely change. The world is a very different world for that little child. So वो already especially abled hai, gifted hai, but first and foremost, identifying that little gift for that child, that identifying micro going into the depth of that child's presence and this growth, you will find something that's very stark and very gifting about that little boy or the girl. Secondly, when the puberty hits, it is definitely going to be very challenging. It is very good. But again, there are specially abled occupational therapists and special educators who can help you navigate that difficult space. And so
What
I
is the
did
role
have
of a parent in this case?
parent again the parent more than the so the parent may not be able to create that awareness for the child at the rate and pace that the child's disability seems to be at, but awareness, education, being in touch with the latest trends in the world that are being exercised and used in terms of dealing with disabled or especially abled children, that is very important. So one simple yardstick may not be applicable, is not applicable to
all.
that child. Yeah, that
Yes.
child will act out, that child will act out a lot, because that child already is difficulty mein hai, and the parent stress levels compound the problem sometimes. So the parent, if the parent has to be educated to be able to handle that specially abled child, the parent needs time off, because it's a constant 24/7 for that poor mother or the father or both
Right.
of them. So
Very true.
without feeling guilt, they have to take time off and find their head, find their own space, give themselves a little me time to be able to process things, to be able to function, and to be able to deal with the difficult situation they have. So generally what happens, parents go into a guilt and they give their 24/7 to that child, which becomes a demand and supply space. तो वो specially able child का normal वही है, उसको नहीं पता है कि उसके normal में कोई difference है. That child is
Very
going to be
true.
still, the child is still going to be demanding, and the children can become entitled or extremely over demanding because of many reasons. And so to overcompensate for the difficulty or the lack of a certain ability in that little boy or girl, the parents overcompensate. Now overcompensation again can be a big
It can lead
bane.
to its own set of problems again then.
So it causes a lot of couple conflict. It can, because the parenting takes a beating. Both may be standing on a different pole, right? And already they are struggling with a difficult situation, and to come to terms with, because stigma again, there's stigmatization against a specially able child, not wanting to. I'm not saying the parents do it, but the society at large.
Society in general, yes.
Inadvertently communicate. So the parents are having difficulty. Couple relation does take a beating. Me time takes a beating. Physical fatigue sets in, mental fatigue sets in, and the parent starts experiencing a lot of mental health issues, and they get translated to the child. Sometimes in terms of frustration, sometimes in terms of beating that child, hitting him or her, because you're not able to handle. And let me tell you one thing, all of you, that feelings and emotions, however abstract they are, they occupy a lot of space in our physical body. Vazan hota hai unka. Why do we feel heavy? I feel heavy. I feel burdened. I feel.
You feel weighed down by your emotions at times.
So weighing down is it's a literal thing that emotion is
you
not.
experience it, yes.
So you're not able to process it, and it is going to weigh down,
Right.
and on top of that, more and more and more. So it's a metaphorical lot of burden that you carry. So continuing to talk to somebody who can just listen to you sometimes, continuing to express. If you find, God forbid, if you find nobody around you, please look at a diary or a notepad and just talk to that diary. It is extremely potent.
Journaling is pretty, yes, it is pretty,
express,
it's a good way to
express,
express yourself. Yes.
express. And it's okay to feel fatigued, it's okay to be bogged down, it's okay to be worried, it's okay to be crying. So
I think this
first,
okay, it this phrase, you know, that it is all right, it is okay. जैसे वो Three Idiots movie में था ना, all is well. We need these mantras in our life, you know, which we can adopt as chants, and we can, you know, go ahead in life chanting this to ourselves all the time.
Absolutely. It's okay to not know. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be tired. It's okay to not be the perfect person that somebody
time.
probably, और अपने benchmarks हम इतने high कर देते हैं. And it's the biggest thing is when it is okay, go and apologize to your child that I'm sorry, I made a bad choice. यार मेरे को बच्चों को जब आप apologize करते हैं for genuine bad choice that you may have made which did not work out for you, that child says, wow, I mean, this is amazing. And it's okay to say, okay, as Nisha Tandon is saying, it's beautiful. Normalize feeling anything in that moment. In that moment. By that normalization, you can immediately transcend. So what happens? Feelings find a permanent place in our system. उनकी impermanence को alive रखना है. In that moment, in the now and here, I can feel anything. In the next moment, I'll be more empowered. So validating that, validating. So emotions ना बच्ची की तरह होती है, जिद करती है. अच्छा मुझे accept नहीं कर रहे हो ना? Okay, I'm going to stay longer.
I will come to 4. Okay, so we spoke about boys a little while back and the changes that puberty brings into their, kind of physical form as well as mental form. We were going to speak about girls as well. Puberty for girls is also a hard phase because of the onset of the menstrual cycle. So what kind of issues crop up in girls during this phase?
Girls generally, unfortunately, poor thing, I pity, I feel sorry for our girls because I have a daughter and they learn to clam up because of the non-acceptance of what they are in that moment. They start clamming up. And clamming up means they don't want to talk about it because they think because they think there's something drastically wrong with them. And they have been, so the fear, the anxiety, episodes of depression, episodes of extreme mood swings again, and girls don't act out. A little difference that I have noticed in boys and girls is that girls tend to, not always true, but girls tend to generally internalize it, whereas boys find ways and means to externally sometimes vent it out, but there are times when the boys just clam up. So girls also internalize a lot of learnings, and the biggest learning that the girls internalize is how they see their mothers. So they learn to become their mothers, and this is not a very conscious learning, mind you. So जैसे आप हैं, आपने अपनी body changes के बारे में, अपनी skin color के बारे में, अपनी breast size, अपने hair, अपनी eyebrows, अपनी physical appearance के बारे में कैसे process किया और आप क्या बात करती हैं, what is your narrative around that? And it's a very covert, we are constantly talking about our physical appearance, or we're constantly talking we are constantly talking about it, and we're constantly asserting how important it is to look good, appear good in front of people.
And I think India as a society, Dr. Dipti, is obsessed with the physical appearance of a person. I don't know when we will grow above that, but we tend to pass these kind of, thoughts onto our younger generation as well.
Exactly. And girls, they are shamed for body odor. They are shamed that they have body odor, teaching them that it's okay to have body odor and how can we take care. But again, I'm coming back to the basic thing that the way you accept yourself even today will be exactly the way your child will learn to accept, especially girls. So girls look up to the mothers, and boys, they generally look up to the fathers. And boys na fathers के साथ compete करना शुरू कर देते हैं teenage में. oh, he's the man, I'm the next man. I need to be accepted.
All right. Then
I
the
need
next Sunny Deol.
I need to be accepted. My opinion
Right.
matters. So there are very many things. Girls बेचारी clam up कर जाती हैं या बहुत ज़्यादा act out करके rebel भी करती हैं. They will just throw caution.
How to make them come out of their shells? That's Srishti Singh's question. When they clam up, what can a parent do?
First is again, it might seem repetitive, but these are extremely
Important
critical tools that we can. So as a parent, if the society is not wanting to give them this impression that they are lovable, they are adorable, they are accepted, and they are beautiful the way they are, let the world be outside. Your entire, your personal ecosystem, your personal ecosystem in the house where you are the biggest stakeholder, you have that beautiful power to just communicate to that child that it's okay to be the way you are because you're just brilliant. जैसे तुम हो बिल्कुल अच्छे हो, we can only become better. So we are work in progress. We are all work in progress. Let outside world or no advertisements or nothing in the social media decide that this is the parameter of a perfect looking person. I have some most gorgeous looking girls who feel that they are the ugliest. Now, this is a very so this is not important beyond the point.
It's not.
And it's a long way to go, Sonal. It's a very long way to go.
Yeah, the societal mindset will take, I don't know how many ages, to kind of change, not even change. First, I think before the change comes, the acceptance has to come that what we are saying is not okay. It is not all right to judge a woman based on her features or her color or her, body.
Even a boy, even any, so let's
even a boy, yes.
Any gender for that matter. Now they're getting aware of their sexuality. The sexuality part, not the body organs. They're getting aware of their sexuality. There are sensations that they experience when they see something or they meet somebody, or their concept of relations beyond their relationship with the parents is beginning to develop, understand, foster karna chahte hain wo. They are bound by societal shackles and family values. So there is a conflict there. The girls particularly, because still patriarchy in our society is diluting, but it still exists. So these girls who are wanting to, so there is peer pressure to be like that person or wear a spaghetti for a very simple thing like wearing a strapless or a strapless a slim outfit to go out. Half the time the girls feel, no, my body is not worth showing, I can't wear it. Second thing, my family will not accept it. Third thing, I'll be rejected or ridiculed. No, but the internal home front, the mother and the father, if your love is unconditional. Now, when I say unconditional, does not mean that you accept them for their bad behavior. Break that bad behavior down with them.
Yes.
So there's a very profound thing that I kind of always followed and I understood much late in my life, is that a child will behave exactly the way the child is made to feel. If a child is acting out,
very true. Yes.
If the child is acting out, please understand that the child is internally not feeling the best. So usko pata hi nahi us feeling ko name kya dena hai.
So कैसे डील करना है उस चीज से, तो अलग ही बात हो जाती है फिर.
And then he sees the parents acting out. Last session also I said how critical it is to learn to regulate how difficult emotions can be processed. But the easiest way is to vent out, speak out, blurt out. Impulsive हूँ मैं तो जो मैं बोलना चाहती हूँ या बोलना चाहता हूँ मैं तो बोल देता हूँ. That is how I am. I'm trying. Sometimes the adult has to be more mindful. So mindfully, if you are processing that difficult emotion in that moment, imagine the power you can give your child. And if I was to go by statistics, there is more often than not in a day that you're going to be dealing with some difficult spaces than with easy spaces. चाहे उसका कोई आपके पास legitimate reason है या नहीं है, because your anchors in the past and the present are enough to create a scary future. Right?
True.
So anxiety sits in the future. So now that child is sitting in the house and processing, and there's a lot of learned behavior. So you please, parents, be what you want your child to become. Otherwise, they will become
We are
what
the
you
role
are.
models, basically. We are the role models for them, right?
So they will become what you are. And then we say, यार मेरा बच्चा ऐसा क्यों बन गया? But हम introspect करेंगे ना time to time, तो हम
So we'll realize where we're going wrong.
And go down on your knees, यार अपने बच्चे के 16 साल की एज पे चले जाओ knees पे, and just remember क्या था यार 16 years होना, 12 साल में कैसी थी मैं? I mean, if I was to question my own space at 12, I thought my daughter or our children are way smarter. But that's again a liability. Why should they be always smart? So be communicating with your children, normalize things for them, start talking to them. Even if the more you share with them, the more they will share with you.
They will share with you. That communication needs to be open. One channel needs to be kept open at all times.
एक बहुत कॉमन सोनल बात मेरे को सुनने में आती है कि बच्चे बात ही नहीं करते हैं हमसे, तो कुछ या बहुत शेयर करते हैं या शेयर नहीं करते, बात नहीं करते हैं बच्चे. देयर आर 3 रीजंस फॉर दैट. वन इज दैट द चाइल्ड इज लुकिंग एट पीयर कंपनी एंड कंटेम्पररी ग्रोथ मोर देन द पेरेंट्स. Right, and it's a temporary phase. They want to connect with their like-minded children, and that's their वहाँ पे बहुत major learning बैठी है सोनल. जब बच्चों को वो interpersonal relationships वहाँ से सीखेंगे, सही गलत की choice वहाँ से सीखेंगे. Are we talking in the house? Second thing, that parents sometimes are overcritical, over questioning, over directing, over telling. या तो बच्चा झूठ बोलेगा, आपका बच्चा झूठ बोलता है. क्यों बोलता है झूठ? बिकॉज उसको बहुत ज्यादा क्वेश्चनिंग की जाती है, उसको बहुत इंटेरोगेट किया जाता है, या उसको इवन एज एन एडल्ट, द न्यू एडल्ट, या तो उसको बच्चे की तरह ट्रीट कर रहे हैं या उसको कंट्रोल करना चाह रहे हैं, या डायरेक्शंस है, सिट लाइक दिस, डू लाइक दिस, डोंट डू दिस, क्लोज योर फोन, सिट. Now, when the child is being questioned, directed, told, introspected, the child is going to start lying or clam up. बात नहीं करेगा वो.
It has to be either pole basically.
He will वो doubt में चला जाता है कि यार मेरा parent ही मुझे doubt कर रहा है, तो मैं कैसे? So his trust in himself is going to come from the trust you repose in your child. Simple. This is the simple. So you repose. Let it make mistakes. Failure करने में ना बहुत मजेदार से experiences आते हैं. Now I don't mean failure like academic. Academic failure में हम अपनी बच्चों के साथ anxiety translate करते हैं, हम उनको skills नहीं देते हैं कि pressures के साथ deal कैसे.
How to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Dipti, there's something that I'd like to touch upon. It is kind of like a sensitive issue, but it gains importance today because of COVID. Children are going through, pubertal changes during this phase, 12 to 13 to say 15 years. Secondly, their lives have been upended because of COVID. Now, on top of this, they are already going through hormonal, emotional, psychological changes and stress. What if? And I apologize for putting it out there. I apologize to my audience, but I think it's a very relevant discussion. What if during this phase there is a separation between the parents? They separate. It is acrimonious, or it leads to divorce or whatever. What if there is loss of one parent during this situation due to COVID or any other reason? What if there is a change in the family dynamics, in the sense that the grandparents come to live with them? What are the kind of how would a child react to these situations? And what, as caregivers, I understand what you've said, we can practice more of them that as parents, but how would a child view these situations? How would he or she react?
So there are 3 situations that you posed, Sonal. Let's take each one at a time. Yes. I'll try and be brief. When I get engrossed, I talk. So I'm sorry about that.
No, thank you so much for the detailed explanations, because they really help. It's like having a personalized therapy session with you. I am so obliged.
No. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. So let's take, for example, the first aspect of separation of a parent, which is an acrimonious separation. And parents ka ya to separation may lead to divorce, or divorce has happened. That's inconsequential, but there has been a lot of infighting in the house. Obviously, the child already is in intense trauma. Number one. Right. Please make put a marker there that the child already is in intense trauma. The parents are, but the child is. It becomes very critical too. So what happens, unfortunately, when such an acrimonious space is prevailing in the house and leading to a separation or a divorce, the parents are so consumed by their own pain and their own spaces that they forget that there is a child. They expect, unwittingly, they expect that the child will understand, must comply. So there is
Right.
so there is a blinker here, there is a blind here that we need to remove. That along with me, there is another subject in the house who's also going through similar trauma, if not more. If not more, because उस बच्चे के पास vocabulary, language, emotional maturity and एक safe space नहीं feel कर रहा है. So the child is feeling extremely vulnerable and very unsafe. Now, safe space is when we have a happy home. That is too idealistic. But having a peaceful home where there are two parents or where there are elders, there are caregivers, and there is a peaceful home where the child feels that no harm is going to come to him or her. Here, the parent is too consumed. Now, the parents or the parent deserves to first and foremost be heard, validated, accepted. उसको बोलना है कि we are extremely sorry that you're going through what you're going through. आप ना कभी कोशिश करिएगा, जब आप किसी की एक स्पेस में बात कर रहे हैं, चाहे आपका बच्चा है या कोई भी कॉलीग है या कोई फ्रेंड है, फैमिली है, sometimes the person comes and shares that I'm feeling a certain way and I don't know what to do, बहुत बुरा सा लग रहा है, या I'm not feeling good. Now, Sonal, me, or anybody else, we may not have an answer to that. Just telling that person, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. I'm sure in the coming times,
the overture of empathy helps a lot at times.
Just a simple, I am so sorry you're going through this, just is so accepting. The power of this simple statement. बिकॉज आप उस एम्पैथी में जाकर के अपने आप को वहां देख लेते हैं कि यार ये किसी के साथ भी हो सकता है, कैसा लगता होगा. आंसर नहीं है आंसर. और मैं यही आई वांट टू टेक दिस प्रेशर ऑफ पीपल दैट यू डोंट नीड टू हैव आंसर्स ऑल द टाइम. जस्ट योर जेन्युइन प्रेजेंस and genuine acceptance ki yaar apna you're going through a difficult spot and I'm so sorry. Now I'll give you an example. I go through my own pain and breakdown sometimes, and when I'm dealing with NID students, I have these sessions throughout the week with them. So sometimes they just read my face and they say ki ma'am apna you're looking very tired and you're not looking good. I may have had a breakdown, and this child, I won't name, but this person blew my mind, Sonal.
Really?
She blew my mind. She says she's going through the worst possible thing that you can ever imagine for an 18 or a 19-year-old girl. There is sexual abuse, there is emotional abuse, there is physical abuse, there is a lack of acceptance, there is financial difficulty, every possible thing that this child can dream of. Okay. And that's happening. It's like a movie being played. In that entire thing, the person is having nightmares. She's crying. She's not able to process. Things are so bad. I was breaking down. I had my own issue at the back of my mind. And she saw me and she says, ma'am, I'm so sorry, whatever you're going through. I wish I could help. I just stopped there. I said, look at this. If a person in such intense pain can step in and empathize.
Imagine the level of empathy she has for another human being, even though she's been through so much. I mean, so we can certainly have, empathy for another person.
So just that sorry word, ma'am, I'm so sorry for whatever you're going through. Now the person doesn't have to tell me. I don't have to tell her anything. And I learned another lesson from there. So empathy is one of the biggest tools of healing. आप सिर्फ ये बोल दीजिए कि आई एम सो सॉरी, मुझे पता नहीं आपके साथ क्या हो रहा है, बट मैं यही हूं. अगर आप कभी बात करना चाहें, आप ना चुपचाप भी बैठना चाहते हैं ना, यू वांट टू सिट इन साइलेंस ओवर द अदर साइड, आई एम स्टिल हियर विद यू. Just saying this takes away the entire pain. You are able to see what lies ahead.
So basically, we need to accept firstly that, okay, there is something wrong. The acceptance needs to be followed by genuine empathy. And the third thing is that it's all right to be going through this. That, things will happen. We will all face these kinds of issues at one point or the another, but we will get through this.
I want to say one more thing here, that
Please.
अपने आप को ना, जितने भी लोग, whoever is seeing themselves as a victim, please step out of that, because whenever you see yourself as a victim, you will always have a persecutor and you will always want a rescuer to come. So you're already incapable. So
society is already judging you. So you'll be judged. You'll feel more judged if you see yourself as a victim.
Absolutely. So yeah, so the mothers are victims, the wives are victims, the colleagues are victims, the daughter-in-law is a victim. Most often than not, the mothers and fathers feel like they are victims at the hands of their children. First and foremost, you're not victims. You're not. So step out of this. Step out. So we call it the drama triangle in psychology. So this is a huge. So वहाँ पे ना एक persecutor बैठा है जो आपको हमेशा victim बनाता रहता है. The person is always constantly badging you, hammering you.
Life में 2-3 इस तरीके के रहते ही हैं जो हमेशा who are playing that high and mighty lordship kind of a role in our lives, right?
And then there is a rescuer जो बैठा है, oh, I'm the Superman, I'll come and rescue you. And on a serious note, when we get into this triangle and it's difficult to step out, we will always wait for a persecutor and we will always wait for a rescuer.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody.
We won't learn to fend for ourselves unless we stop looking at ourselves as a victim.
We don't need anybody. The beauty is that you are equipped. You all are equipped. So first and foremost, please say sorry कि okay, दीप्ति, you feeling a certain way, it's okay. I'm sorry तेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है ना, थोड़ी देर में ठीक हो सकता है. चल, stay in this moment, stay in this bubble for a little while. It's okay. Accept yourself. मेरा सबको मैं ये बोलती हूँ, please learn to first love yourself. You've had some baggages from your childhood. You've had some baggages from different experiences in life. Can we learn to put them aside? I'm not saying do away with them. It's difficult to do away. That would be very, by the book proper. कि हटा दो, हटाना कैसे हटाना ही तो नहीं पता. People don't know how to remove it. नहीं पता उनको यार.
Life would be so much easier.
Exactly. तो मैं कहती हूँ हटाओ मत. Let them exist. Coexist करते हैं, उसको उसकी allocate कर देते हैं जगह, because उस experience में, that experience gave you some characteristic today that gives you the resilience that you're probably not able to.
Person somewhere, possibly.
Absolutely. So the remarkable in you have to identify before the outside comes and tells you. So there is a remarkable in you. Please identify that and let the world endorse it. That's bonus. But are you seeing the remarkable in you? Yes, please see it.
First, yeah.
Please see it and pass it on to your children, because your children are going to be clapping. This is what I saw in my mom, dad, and that's what I'm becoming. Brilliant. And you're equipped. Trust you me, you are all perfect as the way you are. So there is no perfect 100% circle of perfection. Somebody,
Agreed.
I may be at 20, Sonal may be at 60, somebody might be at 80, even that is fine. In that space, in that ecosystem, in that little home, that 80, that 60, that 10, that 20 is just perfect in that moment. Are you work in progress or have you arrived? Because we never arrive.
I always feel that, whatever level you are at, like, for example, you may be at 50%, but to that 50%, give your 100%. That's how you'll grow and you'll reach that 51%. Because if you don't put in your 100% there, you will never be able to, take one step up the rung. So coming back to that question we had, Dr. Deepti, earlier, for children during this pandemic who've lost a parent, or what kind of anxiety, how does it manifest in them?
The parent or the child?
The child. For the child, how does it manifest?
So there are 3-4 ways that it will manifest in that child. Let's take collectively all the 3 spaces three situations that you brought in. First is coming in of grandparents can be a very, it can be a big relief, and it can also be a stress
trigger.
It's a trigger. So dilution of spaces already has happened.
True.
The child will more often than not start acting out, showing anger, irritability, aggressive episodes, or just lock himself or herself up and not wanting to engage, because social anxiety, as I had said last time, it's a real thing. You don't want to interact with people because the new normal it's become a safe space where there is no criticism, no judgment, no So
You're
this is a
isolated
safe.
in your world and you're very happy being there. You don't want to step out anymore.
So there is no judgment ना. So जो जब
Right.
judgment नहीं होता है तो आप उसको अपना नया comfort बना लेते हैं.
Safe है.
In
The space is good for you.
Yeah, and it's temporary. So there can be issues of now take that child, sit with adult child है, उसको पकड़ो. Touch is a very important communication methodology in children. So touch doesn't mean going and hugging children. No, touch means just patting your head, just touching the back, stroking it. We call it strokes in our language. We call it strokes. So somebody comes in, आप रो रहे होते हो, कोई आकर के सिर्फ ऐसे कर देता है.
Rub कर दे. Yes, it is.
So the tactile experience is so beautiful. So just occasionally, aate jate, just touch your child, pat his head. And when the parents are struggling with any difficult situation, पहले तो उसके साथ honestly share करो. Your child will share only as much as you share. तो आप अगर उस difficult moment में हो where dad has moved out or you have moved out or grandparents have come in, I won't talk about the loss of a partner right now. Right now, I'm talking about these two. In that moment, please talk to your child that this is what I'm experiencing. I'm sorry, मुझे ना ऐसा महसूस हो रहा है, but मुझे ये पता है कि with you around, शायद we can deal with it.
Yes.
But I don't want to hide my emotions. This is how I'm feeling. I am scared. I am fearful. मुझे ना डर लग रहा है, मुझे anxiety हो रहा है, मुझे पता नहीं है future में क्या होगा, but जो भी होगा ना, we'll deal with it. हम सब safe हैं. The only thing that you can assure your child in that moment is that while I'm experiencing all of this, I am still there with you and we are all safe. Number one. Number two, ask the child, this particular separation, this particular influx of grandparents has taken up some space. तुम्हारा शायद कमरा उनको देना पड़ रहा है. I'm sorry, मुझे ना idea है, it might feel this way to you, but would you want to talk about it? Don't pretend or don't arrogantly present that space that you know. You don't know what it might feel for that child to give away his or her room.
Right.
However few times.
They're kind of very possessive about their personal spaces during the teenage years.
So no, that's their identity. They're growing up in that identity. Right. And if somebody was to take away my identity from me, I would be lost. So true. Just ask the child that, okay, there is a difficult spot, temporary. Do you think you have some suggestions? Can we do something that you also manage some space for yourself? Brainstorming, we call it working it out. Brainstorm, because children do come up with some brilliant ideas. Third thing, when there is a loss of parent, the trauma that the partner is going through is another level. And the fear and the extreme worry and the extreme panic that is very internalized that the child might be experiencing, age no bar. यहाँ पे age no bar बोल रही हूँ मैं. Every child will be manifesting some psychosomatic, psychological trauma symptoms in that. So it's okay to first and foremost cry. That's a natural emotion. Loss of a loved one, it is but natural to cry. So please don't shy away from exhibiting what you're feeling, because you are going to be creating a space where your child can actually, the two of you can sit together and cry it out and feel united. You feel bonded. There may be some school of thought may not agree with it, but as a grief counselor, I can tell you that talking about a past loved one, the more we talk about them, the more alive they are and the more healing happens. We can't just suddenly close that chapter in our life. It's been a very, very critical and a very relevant journey.
We can't just stop talking about it. कि भाई चले गए तो बस बंद कर दो बात करना. A lot of people do that actually.
नहीं करना, करो बात करो. जितनी बात करना चाहते हो करो. Encourage करो. अगर बेटा बात करना, you want to talk about it, talk. You don't want to talk about it, it's okay. But whenever you want to talk about it, I'm right here. And I know that मुझे ना बच्चा चाहे आपका 5 साल का भी है ना, आप उसको बोलोगे ना बेटा मुझे अभी ना ऐसा फील हो रहा है. So the child may not be able to verbalize what death for him is. But the child experiences it and वो understand करता है way more than you think he can. So you can always tell that child that I know that मुझे बात करनी होगी ना, यहाँ आके तेरे साथ बैठना होगा, तो I can always come and we can always be in the same space. Please allow your children to cry, talk, allow yourself. Talk to somebody जो आपके साथ genuinely suggestions, recommendations और तू ऐसा कर ले और तू वैसा कर ले और तू finances कर ले की nitty-gritties के बगैर सिर्फ उस पर्सन की और तुम्हारी जर्नी को वैलिडेट कर रहा है, सेलिब्रेट कर रहा है, प्रोसेस कर रहा है तुम्हारे साथ, या सिर्फ सुन रहा है? कैन यू फाइंड दैट वन पर्सन? जस्ट बी विद दैट पर्सन. बात करो, जितना बात करना है बात करो, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है इसमें. ग्रीफ इज a real process. You're letting go of a person's physicality, but by doing this, you're allowing the spiritual, the larger being that that person becomes, to prevail with you, and that's very empowering. Please allow the spiritual or the whatever that so the person has become larger than life. It's just the physical form, but yes, for us that physicality is a very critical space. So allow that person to be there with you. बात करो.
Thank you so
The more
much,
you
Dr.
talk,
Dipti.
the more you talk.
The
Yeah.
insights that you have given today, I mean, I would say, this has been one of the most fantastic sessions that I have had the privilege to host. I have learned so much personally from whatever insights you have given, and I'm very sure that so will the audience, and we'll be putting up a recorded session of this, of course, on YouTube later, which we hope to promote so that more and more people understand what children go through and the kind of support that they needed to extend so that the children grows up in a happy, safe space. And one takeaway that I'm taking from this session is that it's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
It's my takeaway.
And it's okay, you're just... Last one thing, don't compare your children to anybody. Anybody. Comparison is the worst. So आप बच्चे को थप्पड़ मारते हो ना, उससे ज्यादा चोट कंपैरिजन से लगता है. प्लीज रिमेंबर. सो डोंट कंपेयर. आपने उसके वजूद को ना बिल्कुल मिनिमाइज कर दिया, और यू व्हेन यू डिसमिस a child by doing that, you actually dismiss his existence. So don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Dipti. Before we sign off, there is just one thing I would like to say to my audience. One of the major reasons that we have found that is also a cause for anxiety in children is the kind of career pressure that parents tend to put on their children. So we will be hosting a very, very, insightful session on this on the 4th of July with Varnika Agarwal, who runs My Big Leap, which is a career counseling platform. So she will be sharing how we can basically connect more with our children and what kind of steps we can take to ensure that we help our child in choosing the right career so that that anxiety is minimized in their lives at the point at which it needs to be minimized. Thank you so much, Dr. Dipti. And wish
it's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Sonal. It's been such a pleasure. God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.